What it's like on board an outnumbered Philippine ship facing down China's push to dominate the South China Sea. As dawn slowly broke on the horizon, a large fleet of Chinese vessels came into view from the deck of a Philippine Coast Guard ship as it entered the contested waters of the South China Sea. Significantly outnumbered by the number of Chinese vessels, the 4 ships in the Philippine convoy on a resupply mission to troops were quickly surrounded and separated during a frantic high-seas skirmish on Tuesday morning. Within just a few hours, the window of one Philippine boat would be shattered by water cannon and 4 sailors aboard would be injured. China's determination to assert its disputed sovereignty over the entirety of the vast South China Sea has sparked increasing clashes with its neighbors in recent years, particularly the Philippines, which is a mutual defense ally of the United States. But what CNN and journalists on board the Philippine Coast Guard vessel on Tuesday witnessed was one of the most severe confrontations to date and a vivid illustration of how this David versus Goliath struggle in one of the world's busiest shipping waterways could spiral into the next global conflict. The Philippine ship tried to find safe passage through myriad China Coast Guard ships as well as fishing vessels that form part of China's shadowy maritime militia blocking their path. The Philippines accused the China Coast Guard ships of colliding with 2 of their vessels, causing damage to their exteriors. One of the smaller Philippine boats was also hit by water cannons from 2 Chinese vessels, shattering the windshield and leaving the crew on board with injuries. China countered that its Coast Guard vessels took control measures against Philippine ships that it claimed illegally intruded into its sovereign territory. It said the damaged Philippine ship ignored repeated warnings and deliberately rammed into a China Coast Guard vessel in what it said was an unprofessional and dangerous manner. CNN joined the Philippine Coast Guard for 2 days, the first time foreign journalists have been allowed to embed with the fleet in decades. Their mission was to resupply a small group of Marines living on a World War II-era ship grounded on an obscure contested reef. Issues like this have become one of the most regular causes of direct confrontations between the Philippines and its giant neighbor China, which has built up the world's largest navy. What happens among the tiny islands, reefs, and atolls of this corner of the globe could have profound international repercussions and become a major global flashpoint. Departing the sleepy port of Bulacan on the southern tip of the Philippines' Palawan Island, 2 Philippine Coast Guard ships embarked on a 13-hour overnight journey north to the Sabina Shoal, where they met up with 2 smaller resupply vessels staffed by the armed forces of the Philippines, transporting food, water, and other essentials. The Coast Guard ships then tried to escort the smaller vessels as they navigated the disputed waters on a 4-hour steam toward the next location. Their target was the Sierra Madre, a rusted ship that rests on a strategically vital shoal that has become the epicenter of this simmering confrontation. The U.S.-built Philippine Navy landing craft was run aground deliberately in 1999, with a national flag hoisted on board. Since then, rotating detachments of Filipino Marines have been living on board, hunkering down through tropical heat, typhoons, and long spells away from home in a bid to assert territorial rights and prevent any Chinese development there. The vessel rests atop a contested reef, which even has a name that is under dispute. Though internationally known as the Second Thomas Shoal, the Philippines call the reef Ayungin Shoal, and China refers to it as Rena Jiao. The teardrop-shaped reef forms part of the contested Spratly Islands, which are all claimed by China. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan have also made territorial claims to some of the shoals. During the confrontation, Filipino crews counted a total of 5 China Coast Guard vessels, 18 boats belonging to Beijing's maritime militia, and, at a further distance, 2 Chinese naval vessels and a military helicopter, said Coast Guard spokesperson Commodore J. Terrila on Wednesday. The Philippines is solely responsible for this, China's Coast Guard said. The Philippines is dishonest in its statements, deliberately stirs up trouble, maliciously incites and sensationalizes, and continues to undermine peace and stability in the South China Sea region. China's foreign ministry has lodged a solemn representation with the Philippines to extend its strongest protest, spokesperson Mao Ning said in a regular press briefing Tuesday. In December, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson accused the Philippines of making repeated provocations and infringing on China's sovereignty. Earlier in 2023, China also accused the Philippines of attempting to deliver construction materials to reinforce the Sierra Madre, which meant the Chinese side was made to respond with necessary moves, adding that the China Coast Guard took warning law enforcement measures. At first glance, it's hard to imagine why these remote, unpopulated reefs and atolls are so hotly contested, but they lie in a strategic location in Asia's main shipping lane, which has more than $3.4 trillion in trade passing through it every year, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, China Power Project. Over the last few decades, China has built up tiny reefs and sandbars far from its shores across the waterway into artificial islands heavily fortified with missiles, runways, and weapon systems, sparking outcry from the other claimants. The Philippines says the development of Mischief Reef, close to Second Thomas Shoal, was what originally prompted them to ground the Sierra Madre. In 2016, in a case brought by the Philippines, an international tribunal in The Hague ruled that China's claim to historic rights to the bulk of the sea had no legal basis.